Hi. On behalf of the trustees and the staff at the Minot-Sleeper Library, I'd like to welcome you to our 2023 Candidates Forum. And also would like to thank the Friends of the Library for providing us with some refreshments this morning. Hopefully it's not too long a meeting that we won't need all of them to sustain us. But our moderator this morning is Brittany Overton, and I'm going to introduce her now and let her go ahead and explain the ground rules and the process for the rest of the morning. So thank you and welcome.
Okay, good morning everyone. It's nice to see you all here again. This is one of my favorite things that happens each year at the library. How lucky we are to get to meet the candidates directly and talk to them. So thank you all for being here, and especially for the candidates. And thank you to the library, especially the Board of Trustees, for organizing this year's event, and to Library Director Jennifer Davis for also helping to organize. So to begin, I will call up candidates running for a certain position one at a time. They'll come to the front, take a seat at the microphones, and then once seated, I will pose questions. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. And Karen is right here, and she has a time card. So she'll show you when you have 1 minute left. She'll show you when you have 15 seconds left, and then when you are out of time. And we ask, even if you're in the middle of a thought, please just try to wrap it up when time is up. And then after a few questions are posed to the candidates, we'll open it up to the audience for questions. If you wish to ask a question, please state your name. You can direct your question to a specific candidate if you wish, but just know that all candidates will have the opportunity to respond if they so wish. Opinions about individuals or commentary on town operations should be held for other forums, like letters to the editor. This event is not a debate, it's really an opportunity to learn the aspirations and abilities of the candidates who are running for elected office. So let's start with library trustees, and this year we have Anita Avery, Dorothy Privé, and Nancy Spears. Those 3 candidates are here. You can come to the front.
There's some chairs up front too for people.
Okay, great. And if anyone is standing in the back and needs chairs, there are. So this year, as voters will be asked to vote for 3 individuals who will each serve a 3-year term on the Library Board of Trustees. So candidates, and we'll start with you, Dorothy, since you're closest to me. Can you please introduce yourself, share a little bit about your experience as you feel it would support you in the role of serving as library trustee?
Well, my name is Dorothy Privé. I've been in this town for 23 years. My kids came to this library when Danica Spain's mom was a librarian. I wrote a children's book. I work in the school system. And the library's always been a place of quiet, solitude, and just togetherness, where you can feel like it's really a kind place to go. You know, people, it's just really nice here, so that's why I want to be part of it. I'm not really good talking for I thought I'd just kind of slide in, slide out, but here I am. First one up. Yeah, so that's about it. Like, I've always loved the library. I think it has a big part in this town, with kids and with families, and just to keep us all together.
Thank you. Anita?
Hi, I'm Anita Avery, and I've lived in town for about 33 years. The last 3 years I've been selectman, and that has been a very big job. I admire everyone who does that job greatly. I've enjoyed it, but it was a little too much for me. I've been very interested in being a library trustee for about 10 years. I didn't get in the first time in time to be, for the vote, and I think being a selectman, what I've learned there is going to give me a really good leg up on what I'll know for being in the library. I love this library. I've spent countless hours here with my children and by myself, and I love this town. So I think I'm a good fit for it.
Great, thank you. Anita, we'll start with you for the next question, which you led into. Why are you interested in serving in this role, and in what ways do you feel like you can support the library as a member of the trustees?
Well, I love it. I know a lot about the library. I've spent a lot of time here. I have some qualifications after being a selectman. I'm not quite, that's about it, I would say.
Great, great. And Dorothy?
I've always loved to read. I always think that when I wrote my children's book, I brought it into the library and I read it in front of the kids. And I gave away a lot of the children's books that I wrote and always say to everybody, keep reading because it'll take you everywhere. And I think the library is a great place for kids to start to enjoy reading. Not just school where they're forced to read a book. They can come and pick a book out and enjoy it. So I want to be part of that. I want to have kids and adults really get back to enjoy reading. And I don't know what experience I could bring to this, but I guess because I had a lot of kids and I did work in the school and I saw kids that struggled to read. So if they can come and enjoy it, I would love to be part of that.
Great. And the last question for me, and we'll start with you, Dorothy. You actually led into this. I promise this is the last one for me.
Okay.
The library meets the community's needs in a lot of ways. So what needs do you see in the community that you feel the library meets or could meet in the future?
Bring in like story hour back after COVID. That would be really, really good to have more kids come for story hour. And the computers, so everybody's able to have a computer, and people do come here and look for jobs on the computer. And to give that sense of community again, where you can go someplace and be on the same page with other people, get on the same page, sort of like that. So.
Great, thank you. Anita?
Pardon me, something I missed a little bit in the last question is I think part of what's really important about this job, pardon me, I'm sorry, is advocacy. And I think that we really need to be advocates for the library and for what's going on in our country right now, a lot with books and just, you know, we all need to get involved in that because there's some trouble brewing out there and
Yes.
it's coming to our state. So
I was sad about all the books that were banned that I read in school that actually were helpful to me. So that was upsetting too when I saw that. But that's not going to help me be a library trustee. But those are just things that I've noticed in the world. Like she says, things are changing.
I think the library is meeting the needs of the area very, very well.
I
And
do
as you
too.
said, COVID has been a problem and that has set you back. You're coming.
Mm.
It's all coming back.
It's all coming back.
So I think we're in good shape.
Thank you both. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, Cheryl.
Could both of them comment, or each of them comment on what their philosophy is about banning books?
My philosophy is, I don't understand why they were banned. I don't know what the philosophy is behind that. Like, what was wrong with the book for it to be banned?
Now, what is your personal feeling or thought about banning books in a library?
I'm not a fan of it. I think it's up to the parents, I think it's up to the individual whether or not they should read it. It's their own choice. You know, that live free or die. I'm not a fan of banned books.
I have truly never seen anything objectionable in the library. I don't know what, I don't understand the, I mean, I realize there are more things that could be brought in that could maybe be in it, but you have to be careful about young people, very young, what they could take out of the library. There has to be some sort of regulation on that, I guess, but not looking at pornography in the library by any means. But there's room for every kind of literature, I think, and we all, as adults, have a right to find that, and we should be able to find it in our library.
Thank you. Any other questions for the candidates? Yes, John.
What do you think about an inappropriate age material that maybe minors might be able to get to read?
Well,
Would you
I-
keep that from them?
Yeah, I think so,
So in a
yes.
sense, that's like banning books, right?
I don't think that's banning books.
So keeping the material from
I
them.
think they need to be aware what's in the book, and the parents need to be aware what's in the book,
I agree.
and then they make the decision. You know, we're not here to be their parents or their police. It's up to the parents what they need to do, what they think is good, you know.
So if a parent is not here with a 13-year-old, and a 13-year-old is reading some type of material that the parent wouldn't agree with, would you tell the parent what they're reading?
So I just want to clarify one thing here, is that would, and so of course the trustees are in charge of policy and that could potentially be, but in a situational matter, that would be operational, that, you know, the director would be in charge of handling that particular situation.
Isn't it appropriate for the trustees, you said it's policy,
Mhm.
right? Is that policy to say to a parent that your child's reading in an inappropriate book in the library or not?
So if you want to respond to the question in terms of would you, I think what you're maybe asking, John, is would you be in favor of setting age limits for certain materials? Is that the correct interpretation?
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I want the librarian to know what's in the book and the parents to know what's in the book. So if you go to the library and you pick out a book and you go home with it and your mom's like, oh, I don't like you reading that, they should be aware of what's coming in on the library, the parent and the librarian. So that is the way I would handle it. That's the way I would think about that.
Anita, did you have any further thoughts on that? Or you had said what you wanted
I
to.
think so.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
I think there's some content that should be controlled, prevented. I wouldn't, having had 2 kids, they can do a lot of things when you're not watching. And there's a lot of times you're not watching.
Right.
We live in a very different world
We do.
than when we were growing up, and being able to get your hands on things like that. It is right in front of them all the time.
All the time. On the computer, in video games, everywhere you go. It's right
The
there.
library is far safer.
Yeah, the library. Books are a little bit more safer. That, like, people have already read them and rated them by now. And I don't know how to explain it, but it's in their face constantly. And the library is a place to come where that should be watched, but not controlled as much as if you were home.
I just want to jump in really quick. I know we could talk about this for a long time. Do you have a specific question for the candidates related to reading materials available at the
I
library?
think I got as specific as I could get.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for that. Yes, back on Jen.
Janet Metcalf, you know, one of the things that I think is so valuable about this library is the way that you talk about how it reaches out, the intersection between the community. I wish it was open more than one night a week for meetings and events and stuff. But I wonder if each of you could comment on how you see that, if you see that as an important role of the library. And sometimes it becomes a question of funding and things like that, if that's something that you see as critical role that this library plays in the community.
Absolutely, I would love to see it open more in the evenings. I'm sure a lot of kids would too, as well as being, I don't know what the availability is for meetings, if you make it available at night or, you know, more. I
Are you
think you
talking
do.
like Cub Scout meetings or meetings for adults, or, I don't really, like, what kind of meetings are you talking about?
Jan, you're asking just kind of in general, any community group that
community
wants to
meetings?
meet at the library?
And events that are done in the evening after school, for, you know,
Oh.
there's just this intersection with the community.
Oh, yeah. I think it should be open later and be an
It
available.
would be wonderful if they
Yeah,
had
if they could have
the
the
staff.
staff,
and,
you know.
yeah.
That's the thing, you know, staff has to be here. But yes, I would agree to have it open in the evenings more often, yeah.
This place is like one of the most positive places in the town.
Yeah,
You know,
so when
the
you
more
come
it's
in,
available, the
It's just a
better.
really nice vibe when you come in. The parking is good, you don't have to, you can park right down there and park. You can sit here quietly and just read a book. It's just a really nice place. So yes, it would be nice if it was open in the evenings more often, yeah.
Thank you. Time for one last question. Yes.
Morning, Carol Brown. Anita, you kind of have been exposed to this question already. What's your feeling on how can Bristol, as providing funds for this library, find ways to get funding from people that aren't from Bristol using the library?
Oh, wow. I haven't even thought of that. Oh, you mean like the kids that all go to like New Hampton, they have Gordon Nashville, like Danbury kids and things like that come
Yes,
into.
and to
I haven't even thought about that.
poorly quote the person that asked that question, why don't these other towns have a library? I won't name that person, but they're coming here and taking advantage of our funding because they don't have a library.
That I don't I honestly don't know the answer to that. I don't. I just started, like, I just looked into this, so I can honestly say, I don't know the answer to that. I wish I did. I mean, it would be nice if everyone pitched in, because if every town pitched in, this thing would have 5 floors, but, you know, I don't know how that all works, so I can't really answer the question.
How you get money out of people.
Yeah, I don't know how you, like,
I don't know if that would
manage
be,
that, so.
I guess it could be addressed. It should be addressed
Could
to
be
these
addressed.
other towns.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, you don't just give up on it because you might not have an idea. When people talk, you get
You know, at the
ideas.
town meeting, you could talk about it, but to me, I'm not, I don't have an answer, sorry.
Thank you, Bob.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you for being
Thank
here
you.
today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
This year, we'll be asked to vote for one individual to serve as trustee of the trust funds for a 3-year term. Paul Regan is the one candidate running for this position. Paul, come on up.
I thought you'd do, I don't think Charlie's here, I thought you'd do both of us, but that's okay.
So, Paul, I think a few of us know you from your time serving on the budget committee. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us how your experience would support you in the role of trustee of the trust funds if elected?
So my name is Paul Regan, I've been in town for just a little under 10 years. I'm currently serving on the budget committee. I'm a retired engineer. I like to work with numbers, and I'll go ahead and tell you the story. So when we get to later on to the budget committee, we have 2 people who are currently on the budget committee whose terms are ending. So we need 2 candidates to run to fill those positions. And one of the people whose term is ending is running for re-election, and the other is running for a different office. So I went to our town administrator and I said, can you give me some help trying to find someone else to run for the budget committee? And she said, that's not even on my list of things. I'm desperately looking for people to run for the trustee of the trust fund. So I got recruited for this.
Thank you for your honesty. If elected as trustee of the trust funds, how do you see yourself managing the town's investments or any other part of the job that you would manage?
So right now, the trustee of the trust funds, there are 3 people who serve on that. And there's one open position. The person whose term is ending is not running for re-election. So we basically have one surviving person, and that's Betty Sealer, who is a CPA who does most of the work. So I called and talked to her before I put my name in to get some more understanding of what the job does and what would be needed. And to be honest, as far as I can tell, she's doing the work now. So I'm not sure. So she's a CPA. She basically said, yeah, I'm happy to meet with you guys after you get elected, but don't come to me until tax season is over, because I'm really, really busy. So at some point in May, I'm expecting we'll sit down and we'll say, how's it been working? How can we help you take some of the load off, but still get all the work done?
Great. Any questions for Paul? Yes?
I guess, first of all, the trustees of trust funds is very regulated by the law with what you can do. So it's really, you don't have too many opportunities to go out in the margins of the law. Thank you for running. It is a hard position to get qualified people to do it. Everyone says to the trustees of the trust funds, get the most of our investments that you can. And thank you again for running. And
Okay, that's my understanding also. I don't know all the RSAs, but I understand it's a very regulated, what can be done and what can't be done, and that's something that between talking with Betty, who knows all the rules, and then potentially she also mentioned that there are courses available, so potentially we'll look into that.
well, the RSAs are fascinating reading. You'll enjoy it.
I don't have any trouble falling asleep at night, so I wasn't really looking forward to that.
Any other questions for Paul? Yes, Kim.
Can you serve on both committee? Could you serve on the budget
I
committee as
can,
well?
I can. When I went in to put my name in, I talked to Rama, and she pulled out the rules. There are positions within the town that you can't do both of them, but trustee of the trust fund and budget committee, you are allowed to do both.
So we can write your name in?
Well, my name will be on the ballot.
It will, or budget committee as well?
Right, we need to write someone in for the, so for the budget committee, we're elected to 3-year terms, so I'm not up for re-election. We will need to write someone in for the budget committee, and that'll come up later in this discussion. But for the trustee of the trust fund, my name will be on the ballot.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Is Kathleen Haskell here? I haven't seen her. No, she's not here. Okay. Just to note that Kathleen Haskell is running for a 3-year term for town treasurer again this year. And we'll move on to town clerk. I did see Rema. There she is. Would you like to come up front? Most of us, I think, know Rema. But Rema, it's always nice to hear from you. So if you can tell us a little bit about your experience, how long you've been doing this.
Hello, everybody. I have worked for the town for 28 years. I've been town clerk tax collector for 18 years. I've attended certification program and recertification program twice. I've attended New England Municipal Clerks Institute and Academy, which is, I've done that for 5 or 6 years. I'm also an Athenian Fellow, which is if you read 10 books, you get to be a scholar, and after you become a scholar, you can become a teacher for NEMC. I don't know.
Let me ask you, Rema, so elections have been in the news a lot in the past couple years. And you play a role in the local elections, a very important role. What do you feel like we do well here in Bristol, and what are maybe some recent challenges we've faced when it comes to hosting local elections?
I think Bristol does a really good job with the ballot clerks and the supervisors that we have. We get people through pretty quickly. Our presidential one is a little more challenging. When we have the presidential, I try to have 5 groups of people checking people in so that it goes a little quicker. There are a lot of new laws that come out all the time with elections. We have a new one this year. It's called the affidavit law, and it's for anyone that has never registered in New Hampshire before but doesn't have a picture ID of any kind. So, and if none of the officials, the supervisors, myself or Ned, if we don't know them, then they have to sign a letter. They have to have their picture taken. We have to send all of that overnight to the Secretary of State's office, and within 7 days, that person has to send it in also. So there's a lot of new laws that come out, but I think Bristol does really good. I think the worst thing for Bristol is the meeting room isn't quite big enough at the town office building. And so to get up to the town hall is the worst thing for everybody. We wanted to have golf carts Tuesday, but with the weather, we don't know if we're going to be able to do that. I think that, I think as I had talked to the school quite a while ago, we have a new superintendent, well, not brand new, but I think we'll start talking with the school again and see if we can work something out there, because it needs to be an easier voting place for people. That's the biggest challenge.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience for Rema? Yes, Carol?
Hi.
Hi.
I didn't know this until I became a selectman and started hearing some of what you spoke of. Can you tell people what the requirements are to do your job so that just anyone can't walk in and be elected to do that?
Well, really, Carol, there are no requirements. If it's, somebody could run against me this year, if it's a popular race and they won, they win. There's nothing that can stop anyone from running, no matter who they are. So,
Is it not true, however, that if someone else sat in your seat on that first day, they couldn't
yes.
do car registrations
Yes,
for a day?
they couldn't, if someone came in that hasn't worked for a town or done anything like that before, then they can't do car registrations. They can't do vital records. They can't do a lot of things, but they would have to go to the state within a month of working with someone that is certified or is a town clerk.
Is, related to that, could you comment about the software that you use and the state training
Yes.
that you attend?
Well, I'll use like my deputy Cheryl. She started for me last May. She couldn't do any of those car registration, boat registration, vital records, any of that until she worked with me for a month. After she worked with me for a month, then she went to school for a week. And then she could come back and do all those. With vitals, the way it has been with COVID and everything, they changed their training so that I could train her all in vitals. I could train her all for the voting. So that made it easier. She didn't have to go to the state every time. So I can train a lot, and I do teach classes throughout the state also, but there is a requirement that she does have to go to the state for a week. She does not certify them, but she's a municipal clerk at that time.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, Stephen.
You left out one of your services, Rama.
What was that?
You married my wife and I.
That's true, I did. I did do that, yes. And just to throw it out, I have been, excuse me, president of the New Hampshire Tax Association, and I've been president of the New Hampshire Town Clerks Association.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Oh, one more, Erica.
We're lucky to have you, Rayma. Thanks for everything you do.
Thank you so much.
Cheryl, if you would like to come up. So this year for cemetery trustees, we'll be asked to vote for one individual to serve a 3-year term. Cheryl Szewski is the one candidate on the ballot this year. So Cheryl, if you can please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and the experience that you have that you feel would support you in serving as cemetery trustee.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Cheryl Szewski, and I currently am a cemetery trustee and have been serving for the past 2 years, so I'm up for re-election. We have a very strong team this year, or we've had Kate's been on it. Richard LaFlamme does an excellent job of chairing it. What I personally have done is participated in our cleanups of the property. We have several of those a year. We also instituted a program with formalizing the procedure to have volunteers come in and help us with the cleanups. So that had to go through the lawyers and insurance people and the town administrator, and that's a formal program now that we can have people. We had the scouts come in and help us last year through this program, and so we have that all now set up. Some of us write articles. I've written several articles for the Bristol Buzz. I did research on the symbolism on the headstones and the epitaphs, the poetry, and wrote articles on that in Bristol Buzz. And I've learned a lot. I attended training through Zoom on the right to know law and on being a trustee. And I've learned a lot. I've joined some graveyard association organizations. There's a lot to it. It could be a full-time job, really, when you get into it. But I've learned a lot. I've enjoyed it, and I welcome the opportunity to continue.
Great. The cemetery trustees manage the town's cemeteries, and you mentioned a few of the projects that the trustees have done. What do you feel are some of the most valuable ones, and what does that bring to the town through those projects?
Well, the other thing I did when I first started was to pull pull up the RSAs. We've been talking about the RSAs for other people. The cemetery work has state regulations that regulate what the town needs to do. Actually, the town has responsibility for neglected cemeteries. You can't just leave them. So we have the 6 historic cemeteries that the trustees take care of. So it's required by law that there be some trustees or the town administrator has to take responsibility. So we handle the process and the procedures, we answer people's questions, we schedule several work sessions where we actually physically clean up, do the raking, pick up the branches, cut the saplings down. And so that's why it was good for us to institute this formal program where now we're going to try to encourage more volunteers to come in and help clean up the cemeteries. Is that a question?
I think so. Are there any questions from the audience for Cheryl? No? Okay, very good, thank you. Is Susan Sedano here? I haven't seen her either. No. Okay. For Budget Committee, there are 2 open seats, as Paul mentioned earlier, each for 3-year terms. Susan Sedano will be on the ballot this year. The other one will be a write-in candidate. So be thinking of who you think that may be or who should be. Okay, so we'll move on to Select Board, and I would like to invite to the front the 2 candidates who are here. Rob Glassett, the 3rd candidate, did inform the library that he was unable to attend today due to other obligations. So Stephen Koffel and Scott Santagrin, if you can come to the front. Thank you both for being here today.
You're welcome.
We'll start with you, Scott, since you are closest to me. If you can share a little bit about yourself and what experience you have that you feel would make you a good candidate to serve as a selectman.
Sure. Well, I've been in town since 2001. Have a family, 2 teenage kids in high school now. Been involved, did a 3-year term on the Budget Committee 3 years ago. It was right before. So my last year was the year before it went down to 7. And I'm a district sales manager with Lake Street and Coca-Cola. And I just try to be involved with the community as most as I can.
Thank you. Stephen?
What was the question?
If you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what experiences you have that you feel would support you in role as selectman if elected.
Oh, okay. I've never held public office, but I've owned my own business for almost 40 years. I've had to hire people and fire people. I've had to balance budgets. I've been through 3 recessions, maybe 4. I was born in Arlington, Massachusetts. I grew up in Billerica. 60 years ago, Billerica was a nice little town like Bristol is. It's changed quite a bit. But I like the small town, and I like Bristol a lot. I like the people here a lot. I've been, had a cottage in Bristol Shores for 12 years. I've owned a house, my wife and I own a house on Lake Street for 4 years now. And we really like it. We'd like to give something back to the town.
Great, thank you. So Stephen, we'll start with you with the next question. If elected, what initiatives, projects, or issues would you like to address in your 3-year term?
Well, I'd like to get more businesses in town, but there's not a whole lot government can do other than make it a friendly atmosphere for businesses. They can't create businesses, they can't force businesses to come here. I own my own small business. It's here in Bristol. It's a dental laboratory. I've been a dental technician for almost 40 years. I make teeth. So I would like to see more businesses here to help out with the tax burden. I'd also like to see the taxes at least stabilize, if not go down, for the hardworking residents here in town. And I'd like to see something done with the sidewalks. That was mentioned to me recently, and because I live and work in town and I drive a big truck, an F-250, I'm very aware of people walking on the sides of the road, and it's dangerous. And my truck is perfectly legal to go up these roads. But if you're walking side by side, I have to slow down or stop. So anyway, I think that's a priority.
Great. Thank you for being so specific with those priorities.
First and foremost, I'd like to see the finalized safety building completed. Get that project going. We spent, when I was on the budget committee, is when we did the workups and the planning for the police station, and then it evolved into a town building, which I think is a gem in itself. It was a good opportunity for the town to jump on and purchase the medical building. That worked out well, and it created some other opportunities we have. Once that is up and running, I do have an idea for the current fire department building. I'd like to see the town, personally, I'd like to see the town keep it, because town property is at premium. We don't have a lot. I'd actually like to see it developed into a senior center.
Yes.
And make use of the bays that we have. Strip them out, beautify them at a reasonable cost, low cost, volunteers. I think it would be a great space. It's just space that we can have to vote. We can do other functions. We can use it for just this endless opportunities to use that space for once we have it cleaned up. Keep the garage doors there, so in the summertime we can open them up, and you have nice open air, fresh air, and more parking. So.
Great. Thank you. So this year there are several warrant articles, 3, that are related to tax credits and a tax exemption. Each article asks voters in Bristol whether we want to adopt New Hampshire legislation that provides tax breaks and incentives to residents. The first warrant article asks whether to adopt the optional veterans tax credit. Every town in New Hampshire as of 2021 has adopted this legislation and provides it to their residents. The second warrant article asks whether to adopt the all veterans tax credit, which provides an annual tax credit to qualifying homeowners in the amount equal to or the standard optional veterans tax credit. And as of 2021, 155 New Hampshire towns had adopted this. The third will be on a petitioned warrant article asking whether to adopt the solar energy systems exemption, which would provide a property tax exemption for property owners with installed solar energy systems, so solar panels on their properties. As of 2021, 137 New Hampshire towns had adopted this legislation. So the question for you, candidates, is whether you would support these tax credits and exemptions, and what are your thoughts in general about offering these types of incentives to residents and businesses in Bristol?
I'll go first, I guess. So I am a veteran, but the town has had a...
So they would re-adopt it.
All right,
So this year
re-adopt.
it would be a
Okay,
vote
so
to
it's
re-adopt.
re-adopt.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I do have that tax exemption, I guess. I believe it's $500, so it's not a lot, but it's something. And then the other ones, the solar, it's, at the town level, I don't know if it's you're looking to increase your own financial being and your own carbon footprint, but I don't know if it should be allowed. I'd have to do some more research. I didn't read into that one. But do some research on it and decide then if it's what I need to support or not.
Thank you.
As far as the veterans go, I can't think of anything that I would say no to a veteran about. I believe in taking care of the people that take care of us. So just about anything that comes up for veterans, I would be in favor of, anything that would work for them. As far as solar goes, my wife and I looked into 2 different solar companies for ourselves up on Lake Street. And originally, I thought, gee, we have terrific exposure on the roof. Wouldn't be offensive. We needed a new roof. And they're black, they kind of blend in. A couple of places have them, homes have them here in town. And they didn't want to put the solar panels on the roof, they wanted to put it in my yard, and that was not going to happen. I don't want that monstrosity in my side yard. I don't want my neighbors to look at it. I don't want to look at it. But the nuts and bolts of the finances of it is that both the solar companies are going to finance the equipment. And then that would offset the savings from using Eversource. So I don't know why we would need to give a tax credit.
So just to be clear, so it's not a credit, it's an exemption. So like in your case, if you were to install solar, your assessed value would not increase if this was adopted. So the exemption would make the solar panels on your property exempt from the assessed value. It wouldn't increase your assessed value.
I don't know if anybody can really put a figure on whether a house is more valuable with solar or not. It wasn't right for us, it just didn't make any sense. I wouldn't pay more for a house with solar. So I don't know, maybe not.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the audience? Yes.
What have you done in town? What responsibilities have you put into the town?
None. I was on the events committee for a little while, but as far as the public goes, none. I pay my property taxes, own 2 properties, pay them on time. I stop the people in the crosswalk.
Scott, would you like to answer?
People are allowed to turn around in my driveway.
Myself, like I said, I was on the budget committee for 3 years. I've coached through the TTCC for many years when my kids were growing up. Volunteered, worked on a couple projects with Steve Hanser before he had his injury. I actually helped put the roof on the community services building. Those 2 days, stripping the shingles and, well, mostly stripping the shingles because when Steve's guys put down the new shingles. Other than that, and then just I'm an active member. I try to attend the town meetings, and then just being involved with events at Kelly Park. That's another gym we have. I play in the adult softball league down there during the summer, and other than that, the trick-or-treating has been nice with the town square upgrades, the lighting and everything downtown has been great. So, and supporting the local businesses downtown. So.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Erica.
Is it Mr. Coughlin?
Coughl.
Coughl, I'm sorry. Mr. Coughl, you mentioned when you first started talking about how you like to see more businesses come to town.
That's
Can
true.
I just clarify, were you talking about like local, small business, like people starting businesses in town here with their families?
Local
Or were
and
you
small
talking-
businesses.
Or were you talking about like McDonald's?
Like,
Were you talking about restaurants?
no, I'm not interested in McDonald's. If you folks are, put one in and we'll just move. Or Walmart, or Home Depot, not interested in that. Small businesses and that don't compete with the businesses already here. I don't think we need another hairstylist here, or another restaurant. But I wouldn't stop them. I mean, the government can't stop them, but maybe something that we don't have here. Maybe something that people would enjoy, like a movie theater. I don't know. I did want to mention, I forgot, when I was on the events committee, I was really in favor of putting a skating rink in for the town. I go to the town recycling center 2-3 times a week. Sometimes I just got to get out. I live and work in town. And I go to Dunkin' Donuts, I get a cup of coffee, I go to the dump. And I love to see the kids out there sliding on that hill. And I thought, boy, you could put a skating rink right across the street. It'd be a one-stop for the people, for the moms and dads. One child can be on the rink, the other one can be sledding. I think that would be really good for the town.
Thank you. The question was directed for Stephen, but Scott, if you would like to respond to the question about business, you're welcome to.
I'm open to primarily any new business, but in common sense world, we will not have a Home Depot or Walmart coming to our town. It's right up the street in Plymouth, so we're not that type of community that would attract that large-scale business. But I'm open. Competition is good for any business we have in town. Again, staffing and volunteerism is at a premium. I know we have tried the ice skating rink we had at Kelly Park. It was a challenge to get volunteers to operate that, and even just the location. The grass looks flat, but when it comes down to it, it's pitched, and you had 12 inches of ice at one end of the rink and 3 at the other end. So it took a lot of water. Just people to maintain it through the winter. Being involved at Wells Field, that field is the same way. That will not work down there. They have thought of that, and it's until I know they revisited the ice skating rink committee again this year, and I don't think it came to fruition because not enough people volunteered, signed up to do it. So. And I don't want to put that on the highway department to maintain that.
Thank you. Other questions for those running for select board? Yes.
You mentioned a few projects that were important to you. I wonder if you could prioritize what you think are the most important projects. The other part of my question is, what do you think is the greatest town asset at present?
Well, priority number one is our safety building. We need to get our first responders in a up-to-date, up-to-code standard building. Keep them safe and everybody up and running. Second, then once that happens, then the fire department building would be the next priority. And then looking at making our sidewalks safer, again, working with the state to do the updates from here to Rite Aid would be another large-scale project to work with them on that. But that's on the 10-year project as far as I'm aware. And then the Pemmy Pathway Trail is another one down to Hill Village is a priority for me.
And I think the second part of the question is, what do you feel the town's greatest assets
Oh, the
are?
greatest assets.
Correct?
The library.
The library, so I was in support of this library, and every time I drive by, I look at it and I can't believe the work that went into it to make it look like it was not an addition. So this is a gem, but
I guess
just the community itself is a downtown area is the gem, I think, the hub.
Did you have a clarification?
Yeah, it really wasn't a fair question, so pardon me, I couldn't help it. I think the greatest asset to this town is the people, and the employees.
You just stole my thunder.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say a word.
Stephen, so prioritizing.
Priority has to be, and it always has been throughout my life as a Boy Scout, as an employer, is safety. The sidewalks have to come first. People got to be able to walk around this town and get, maybe they don't have a car and they have to walk up to the Rite Aid to get their prescriptions filled, like was mentioned earlier. They need a safe way of getting up there. I've seen kids walking home from Dunkin' Donuts that just got through serving me coffee, walking a path 12 inches wide as trucks are going by. The road going down to the lake, beautiful place to go out for a walk, unless there's traffic. And on that little bridge, I can't change the bridge, but sometimes I have to come to a stop if another F-350 is coming in the other direction. You can't change the bridge, that'd be too expensive, but at least we could put in some sidewalks. So the safety of the town would be a priority with me. And the assets, I'm not trying to pander here, are the people. I like the people. They're hardworking. There's a lot of private businesses. There's restaurants. There's hairdressers. There's real estate companies. All hardworking people. paying their taxes and providing a nice service for us here in town. So I would say that's the asset.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Bill.
I'd like to just make a comment. I'm the Bristol Town Lakes Regional Community Center. I'm our Transport Advisory Committee representative. And I would like any of you, if you would like, after this meeting to come up, we have two roads, Lake Street and Summer Street, which are the two roads you're talking about. We're currently under the GASIC program for upgrades. And if you would want to come and talk to me later, I can tell you what the status of that is, which is not good.
Thank you. Other questions for, yes, Carol?
So Scott, I don't know you and I talked at length in front of the polls about a year ago, and I think we agreed on a lot of things. So I don't want anybody to take offense at this. I know it's a bad way to start a comment, but I have been told that one or the other of you has an agenda against our police department. And I'd like to hear your comments about what you think about it.
An agenda against the police department?
Yes, I'm just asking what you both think about the police department and its value, and would you support it?
Did you both hear the question?
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised at the question. I support the veterans, I support the police, I support the fire department. I mean, when you need them, they gotta be there. And I can't think of anything else to say other than I support them. I think police are good, we need police. Police protect us. We call them when there's an emergency. We call the fire department. I've been in the ambulance personally. Nice folks. It's kind of a no-brainer for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do not have agenda against the police department. I've always supported them, and everything we've wanted to do has been positive. So I like having them there when they're needed. So.
I would actually just like to ask a follow-up to your question, Carol, if I may really quickly. In what ways do you see yourself, if elected, as a selectman, would you support the police department?
I would. I already answered that. I would like to see the officers walking a beat, and not as a show of force, but just to walk downtown by the businesses, just to maybe introduce themselves, maybe to show a friendly side. I don't ever see cops. I mean, they're in their cars, they go by, I don't even know what they look like. So maybe having a couple walk the beat, and they could walk from the police station down, do a little loop around town and walk back. I think that would be nice for the community too. I think the taxpayers would like that.
Thank you. Scott, any specific ways that you feel like you could support them as in the role of selectman?
I fully support them. I like what the CIP plan is with the revolving equipment upgrades, one a year, roughly, unless we can stretch it longer. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. I have seen our police force out in community spirit, in uniform, volunteering. I've played against a police officer in uniform. He was off, softball. But other than that, they are out there. They are positive. They get involved when they can. Most of them have kids. They go to Old Home Day next down there with Arrow. He puts on a little exhibition show with Arrow, but they are there. The fire department's involved. I know a lot of those guys, and they are involved with the community. They help out with hot days when the TTCC needs a way to cool off the kids down at the park, and they get to run their equipment at the same time and run some tests. So.
Thank you. Next question. Yes.
I think the most important part of our town, parts of our town, are the schools, the municipal employees, and the lake and the public beaches. What is your support for the public beaches?
I support public beaches. I just love seeing people enjoy the lake. I don't want to see big development going in anywhere, but as far as the town beaches go, the public beaches go, I think it's great. Maybe, I don't know if there's a way we could get more parking, or some kind of transit system, just a single trolley. In Nashua, they had a couple of trolleys that ran around town, but in the summertime, it'd be nice if there was some kind of public transportation from maybe downtown down to the public beaches for the kids. I mean, we have one of the nicest lakes in the country, not the state, the country. And I just love to see people enjoying it.
Thank you. Scott?
I do support the town beaches. I do use them periodically, probably not enough as I should, as I only live a 5-minute walk away, but I do feel we have made some changes to Avery Krause Beach with the stairway and, or is that, no, that's Cummings Beach, sorry, Cummings on West Shore Road. The parking is what it is. I mean, we only have so much property unless we go purchasing, but now you're taking properties off the tax deed. So the parking lots are what they are at both locations. But I do feel the beach on Lakeshore Drive could use a few upgrades. That rock wall could be upgraded. I'd like to see that done, neaten it up, help make it safer. We can make a couple little rampways, make it ADA compliant, and also maybe some stairways just so it's easier to get down to the sands, the beach surface.
Thank you. Other questions for the candidates? No one else? Okay. Oh, yes.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ford. I was just wondering, I read an article recently this week in the front of the Laconia Sun that referred to the delicensing of the forester department, and I thought that that was something that was a little bit concerning to me. I was wondering if the article referenced our local gentleman, Gary, his last name is Lemieux?
Lemieux.
Yeah, and I guess my general question to you is, do you feel that there's a controlled amount of natural forest area within our Bristol community that you would like to see stay as such? Because I'm concerned if delicensing and stuff like that is allowed, that people are going to come in and just clear cut the side of the mountain that's behind you, and I'm wondering how you feel about having some regulations.
Who owns the land that this is happening to? Is it privately owned, or the town owned, or state, or?
It seems to me that it would be probably privately owned, that is going to be affecting mostly the licensing aspect of the forester. I just think that we have to have limitations and zoning plans in place before all of the hillsides can be safe from being completely clear cut. I'm just wondering how you feel about that type of.
Well, Department of is it DES? Environmental Services. I think they're the ones that regulate anything within 200 feet of the lake and the root system. I owned a house down in Harrisville on a lake years ago, and I had some poison ivy growing there, and I was going to take it out. Well, you better call DES. I called DES. Poison ivy is protected. It has a root system. I couldn't take it down. So, believe me, they've got that covered. But as far as anybody with their own property, I'm really big on people being able to cut down a tree on a property.
I'm not talking about a tree. I mean,
foresting? You mean like lumber?
Well, I'm just wondering how you feel about conserving a lot of our natural space here in the town of Bristol. I guess really.
I think private property is up to the private owner, and I think the state does a great job of regulating the shoreline already. So I don't think anything needs to be changed there. I mean, I'm not up on it. Maybe there's a lot more to it than that, but.
Did you read that? Did you see the article about the delicensing?
I did not. I did not.
I have not either, so I'm not sure.
Does anyone else have any information pertaining to that this year?
Yeah. if you want me to speak to it.
If you want to briefly,
Yeah.
that would be great, Carol, thank you.
The decertification of a number of licenses is the governor's effort to decrease regulation in Essex. It is not a proposed law, it's in the governor's side of the house. He is proposing to eliminate a number of licenses to make the regulation less on the state. He's also proposing to allow reciprocity with other states. If you're licensed to do X in another state, that you could come to New Hampshire more easily. As a representative, you guys, most of you know me, I've had a number of questions about this from people saying, it's kind of crazy to decertify a whole bunch of people, hairdressers and foresters. I've had a number of questions about that. So that's coming out of the governor's office, and if anyone wants me to, I'm going to be keeping track of it. I'll give you my card if you're interested, but it's not even in the legislature. It's governor. It's really a deregulation idea.
Thank you, Carol. I think if you still want the opportunity, Scott, to respond to how you feel about protecting Bristol's natural spaces.
So I do know who you're referencing. Sean Legue is a good friend of mine. He hasn't mentioned anything about it to me. His job is safe. He's fine. And he is a town select board currently. Right, so he's the chair. So anything there involved with the town. As far as myself, I am up for protecting land from, certain development and everything, but I can tell you, like, the hill behind us that's state forest, Sugar Hill State Forest, and it's up to the state to decide what they want to do. But as far as clear cutting, everybody has a different vision on the term clear cut. There's patch cuts, which are, an acreage, depending on the size of the acreage, to most foresters will manage their property so that they get longevity out of that property and select cut. So, but it's up to the private landowner to decide what they want to do with their own property.
The term clear cut sounds destructive to me. I'm not sure what the legal definitions are, but just for the record, I'm pro-tree. I have pictures of trees on my property in the fall that I share on Facebook. I am so proud of my trees. And there's one down here in the corner is my favorite tree in the town, right by the bank. And every fall, this big, beautiful, I think it's a maple. I slow down when I go by it. But
Thank you. Any other questions for the two candidates? Okay, thank you both. Okay, the last part of this morning's candidates forum will be those for running for positions with the Newfound Area School District. There's one position for someone from Bristol to serve on the school budget committee for a 3-year term. This will be a write-in candidate who will be elected. We'll also vote for a district moderator to serve 1-year term, and I don't believe Ned is here today. No. But I do want to acknowledge that Ned Gordon will be on the ballot for this position. So the final group of candidates we'll hear from are those running for school board. Before we get to those running from Bristol, I'd like to acknowledge that Fran Wendelboe is a candidate for New Hampton, from New Hampton, who is running for school board. And she's here today and has requested to speak. So historically, and including this year, only candidates from Bristol are invited to this event. I would like to give Fran 2 minutes to speak to the audience, unless the majority of the audience here today would request that she not, due to other candidates not having been invited. So if anyone is opposed to Fran speaking, if you can just raise your hand at this time. Okay, great. So Fran, I'm sorry, Paul?
Just, could you clarify, I'm not clear, is this a contested election? Is there someone else running for this position?
There is someone else. There is one other person. Yes.
I still want to hear from her, but I just...
Great question. So come on up, Fran. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Fran Wendelboe, and I am from New Hampton. However, I am on your...
And actually, Fran, if you wouldn't mind taking the microphone for the recording. Thank you.
Again, Fran Wendelboe from New Hampton. but my name is on the Bristol ballot because I not only represent New Hampton, I represent all 7 towns. Whether you're in Bristol or New Hampton, Groton, Hebron, Bridgewater, our names are on all those ballots. I am not competing with the candidates that are running in Bristol. The 2 candidates running in Bristol, one of them will become a school board member from Bristol, but their names are also on the other 6 towns. So it is relevant. I do represent Bristol as I do all the towns of the 7 towns in SAU4. I'm currently a member of the school board. In the past, I was a 3-year member of the school budget committee. I'm a former 14-year state representative, so I have a really good handle on the statutes and the RSAs dealing with education. My sons both attended Newfound many years ago. I've lived in the SAU4 district for 45 years, so I'm definitely a local. And even though I don't currently have any children in the school district, I'm concerned about our kids' future. We have a district that has aging schools. We have declining enrollments. We have the swirling issue of the situation with Hebron and Groton and Bridgewater wanting to pull out of our district. And so I'd like to be part of that solution, and I ask for your vote.
Okay, I'd like to, because everyone is interested in hearing what Fran has to say, I'd like to give the opportunity for 2 people to ask questions. Does anyone have a question for Fran? No? Okay. Fran, just one last question then. If you can tell us what your priorities are for serving on the school board, what issues or matters would you like to address?
Well, I'm a conservative, and for me to be talking about maybe it's time that we need to build a new school, but we don't know if we're building one for 4 towns or for 7 towns. By focus the last 3 years, if you reviewed the school board minutes, I have consistently been challenging on increasing test scores and the quality of curriculum. And I think that's starting to show progress. But my main focus is increasing student achievement.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll invite to the front the 2 candidates running for Bristol. And so if you'd like to come to the front, we have Joe Maloney and Randall Kelly. Is Randall here? If he responded that he would be. Okay. Okay, so Joe, thank you for being here today. If you can start by just sharing a little bit about yourself and what experience you feel you have that would support you in your role serving on budget or school board.
Yeah, my name is Joe Maloney, and I am running for Bristol rep for the school board. I've put a lot about myself out there on Facebook, letters to the editor of Laconia Daily Sun and the Newfound Landing. So, but if you haven't read any of that, I grew up in Bridgewater, graduated from Newfound Regional High School. I have a son in 3rd grade at BES, preschooler over at Piggyback Rides, who will be joining the public school soon. And my wife teaches English at the high school as well. I went to UNH and then found a good job down in the Boston area and lived there for about 15 years. And I was a preschool special education teacher there for about 8 years. And when I came back up here, I went over to Ragged Mountain. I'm the facilities and grounds manager there. So, you know, my goals for the school board that I've put out there so far, to look at all available options for facilities for all the different elementary schools. Explore options into alternative school models. We used to have a really neat alternative program here when I was a student. And also extended learning opportunities that will help to engage our most at-risk students and prevent dropouts. I also want to find ways to support and increase recruitment and training and support for our paraprofessionals. and really seek other ways to fund things, grant monies, et cetera, that can take the burden off of our taxpayers. I'd also like to find ways to support and increase teacher recruitment and retention. And I think a big thing, at least for being in the school board meetings that I've attended, just increase transparency and communication about policy, curriculum, and district goals for families and caregivers.
Great, thank you. What challenges or issues do you see the school district currently facing, and how do you feel this impacts the school's first priority of educating students?
So I had the opportunity after the mountain shut down last year. I applied for a job as a paraprofessional at the high school, and I got to see firsthand a lot of concerning behaviors, things that were very clearly due to being out of school for a little while for some of these kids. A lot of behavioral things, a lot of using their phones and things like that. So I think we could, definitely have some policies that would help teachers mitigate those issues. I also think that, like I said, with the alternative programs, I think that some kids just don't learn as well in a classroom setting as they may in alternative settings. So I think having a placement like that might be very beneficial for them as well.
Okay, great. There's currently a building committee to assess facility conditions and space needs at Bristol and Danbury Elementary Schools and the New Hampton Community School. What do you believe the school board should prioritize when considering changes or updates to facilities?
Yeah, as Fran touched upon, we have a lot of aging buildings, and I think, it's really on that committee to mitigate what makes the most sense financially, but also, we are pretty spread out geographically, and I think it would be pretty tricky for some of the little kids to have an hour. I mean, when I was riding the bus as a student, I had an hour and a half ride home and an hour and a half ride to school, and I can tell you, that was because they reversed the bus route. So I was the first to get on and the last to get off. And so I can tell you right now, that was not a pleasant experience. So I think that that's a hard one because I know people really value their community schools. I love what Bridgewater and Hebron did in kind of collaborating to build what they've built. I went to the one-room, well, technically two-room school in Hebron for first and second grade, and I thought that was a gem as well. And so, I think it's really getting the feedback from the townspeople and the families that this impacts is really the most important thing for them to consider. And I think the second thing is then, the cost to, update all of these old facilities as well. So.
Great. I want to open it up to audience to questions. I know we have probably quite a few and a lot of educators in the room too. Yes.
Hi, Heidi Mowbray, Bristol. I'm the current sitting Bristol School Board rep, and I'm out of here. Joe, I saw a recent Facebook posting, and I apologize if any over bronchitis. I saw in a recent Facebook posting that you're going to rely on Tom Edwards' actions as precedents for when to recuse yourself from the topic because, like him, your wife is employed by the school. Tom is constantly corrected and reminded by the other school board members when he should abstain from votes because they have a direct impact on his household. General ethics dictate that members should recuse themselves from any issue when there are any financial or personal considerations may unduly affect the member's judgment. What topics do you consider a conflict of interest, and will you recuse yourself from them?
Thanks, Heidi. So I've had a lot of time to think about that because that's been really the only controversial thing about my running for this position. So the way I look at it is if it's something that directly impacts, my family, then of course I have to, recuse myself. So for example, if my wife comes to the school board and says, hey, I want this money for a field trip or doing things like that, those are things I would absolutely recuse myself from. But as a representative of Bristol, if we're talking about voting for a union contract or something that impacts all of the teachers and paraprofessionals in the district, I would feel like it's my duty to vote
the way, you know, folks in the town would want me to vote, I wouldn't want to be absent for that because I want to represent, you know, your voices in that. So, you know, the fact that my wife teaches at the high school, I don't think is any more of a conflict necessarily than the fact that my kids go to the schools, because I want the best for them, I want the best for our teachers. So.
If we can just hold the applause until the very end. Thank you. I appreciate you being supportive of the candidates. Okay, next question. Who in the audience has a question they would like to ask? Oh, yes, Carol, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, Paul. Okay, Paul.
So I don't have any kids in the school, but I do go to the meetings and whatever. And I had asked at one point a few years ago about finances, and the answer I got was, we never have enough money with the tax cap. We're always struggling to fund things. So do you have any opinions on, is the tax cap a good thing, or is it something you'd like to see get rid of?
I do think the tax cap is a good thing. I mean, as much as, you know, we have a very diverse community here in terms of age and things like that, and I think that we need to find a way to, you know, keep all of the long-term residents here happy while also recruiting young families to kind of start to bolster, you know, that tax money. And so, you know, one thing I think we could get a lot more creative about, I volunteer for a nonprofit called the Continuum Arts Collective, where we are able to access lots of grant monies for things like art supplies, musical instruments, and things like that. And so I think if we could partner, you know, I know the library does a lot of things with grants. I know even TD Bank is looking for community partners for those sorts of things. So I think that we could take a lot of that burden off the taxpayers by getting a little more creative and casting a wider net with some grant monies. So I think that, you know, keeping the tax cap in place is protective of all of our, you know, long-term residents here that, you know, they may be on a fixed income and can't just afford to keep getting increase after increase. So, and I know that the taxes vary throughout the different towns, right? I mean, not every town is as lucky as maybe Hebron or Bridgewater in terms of what they, you know, pay for a rate. And so I think that that's also, you know, worth considering. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, here we go again. Sorry.
Hey, Carol.
Because John's not here, and a core of people have been speaking about this for a while now, both nationally and statewide, and here at the local level, about, I hate to use this term, but let's go there, the rights of parents about having a say in how their kids are educated. And there's a core of people in this country and in this town, and they are in this town, that believe that our school board is not attentive enough to parents' wishes for how their kids will be educated. I'd like to know if you agree that the school board is not paying enough attention to parents' wishes, number one, and then how, if you do or don't, what do you think is a way to solve either that problem or the perception?
Yeah, so,
no,
that's a great question. I guess I'll start by saying, I've been to attended a bunch of the meetings, and whatever I couldn't, I've watched online. And what surprised me the most so far about a lot of these school board meetings is the demographics of who attends them. And I don't see that many parents of young kids there. I don't know if that's something everybody else has seen, but I think that, that's a really big place to start. So one of the things I talked about in my introduction was kind of increasing that transparency so that the school board isn't just some kind of unknown entity. And I know that these are public meetings and people are welcome to come, and it's hard to maybe break away or attend some of them, but it would be nice to see more representation from those families. I do think and appreciate, I think what the school board has done by creating committees to address those concerns, curriculum committee, et cetera. I think that those are important ways of giving those parents voices, while also, having it addressed in a controlled manner. Because I do also think that, some of what's brewing out there has to do with, a lot of kind of propaganda-driven narratives that are trying to divide small communities like this, where we are so close-knit, we can't let that kind of thing happen to us. I think we need to stay, diverse in our opinions, but also find that consensus so that it's not just one person or one board, dictating the way everything happens in the schools. Yeah.
Thank you. Next question? Paul?
So just again on finances, you're not surprised the budget committee person has.
Sure.
So recently we had a proposal from folks in Alexandria to change the formula used to divide the tax burden amongst towns, and we had big pushback from Bridgewater Hebron against that. I guess I'll just ask an open-ended question. What are your thoughts on that, and do you have any suggestions on how that?
Yeah, I think it's tricky because that school was paid for by the townspeople of Bridgewater and Hebron, right? And I remember actually my mom used to teach at the little Alexandria Village School, going up towards Cardigan Mountain, and I think it's wonderful that they're able to attend that school as well, and that they've opened up to that. I also think it's like I was saying earlier, where Bristol and Bridgewater and Hebron taxpayers pay a slightly lower rate, and I'm not sure exactly Alexandria. I think Alexandria might be a little bit higher. So I think it's a way for them to try to keep the school functioning, maybe keep it in the district. But I think that it's hard to ask one group of people to pay more to attend the same school too. So it's kind of a both and for me, really, in that regard.
Okay.
Next question. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for attending today's Candidates Forum. This was another great year. Be sure that you get out on Tuesday. I know the weather might be iffy, but if you can make it great. March 14th at the Historic Town Hall, polls open at 8 and they go until 7 p.m. Town meeting this coming Saturday beginning at 9 a.m. at the high school in the auditorium as usual. So thank you all for being here.